So I'm going to talk to you today about the expansion of the technology giants in the audio space, looking at consumer and also some of the B2B and pro areas. I'd like to start by recapping on some of the trends that have come out from this event. So to start with, I'd like to highlight that a trend that we've been talking about at this event now for quite a few years, since this event really started, and this space is still booming. It's still going very well. It is the darling of consumer electronics, as we call it. It is outpacing the wider consumer electronics market by a factor of 3 to 5, and it's doing very well. Now it is more about headphones and true wireless rather than home audio and smart speakers, where prices are very much under pressure. But it's a great place to be at the moment. Within the overall consumer electronics market, it's still a relatively small segment in terms of value, but the outlook is very strong. From a volume perspective, this is a market that will attach to a very high percentage of mobile phones, will be in a very high share of homes and cars and so on. So the volume opportunity and the strategic significance of audio is more relevant than it's ever been. Another important factor that's come out from this event in terms of some findings is COVID-19's impact. And generally, you could say it's been mixed. The overall impact has been negative because of the pressure on people's wallets and the uncertainty moving forward. But there have been some real bright spots, and the consumption on music, as well as wider entertainment trends, including video that has driven demand for soundbars, is very much a positive trend. The previous discussion looking at home office trends as well, home working trends, we've seen a lot of audio equipment benefiting from some of those trends. But generally the market is down, and there's some areas that have really suffered, such as live sound in pro audio. Another trend that we see in the space, and has been referenced a couple of times at least at this event, is the step change in online channel penetration. And also direct vendors saying, look, we have to go direct to our consumers, and digital is the way to do it. When you have physical stores closing, you have those retailers, some very powerful retailers, accelerating their investment in digital channels, and we've seen a step change in penetration of online. And that will somewhat go back to normality as shops open, but generally we're going to see a real consolidation online in terms of where people are buying their audio equipment. Another important factor is the computerization of audio. And we know this, we've been talking about it for a few years, but microphones and sensors and so many more use cases. And we're really at the start of that now. Microphones are the key trend we've been talking about for the last few years, but now we're seeing lots and lots of sensors that track our mood, track our health, tell the cloud what we're doing, in potentially moving forward phenomenal amounts of detail that really will create a lot of use cases and a lot of value ultimately for consumers. But really we're talking about audio equipment becoming computer platforms in their own right, and wearable computer platforms in their own right as well. And that creates lots of opportunity and links to the rest of the presentation. Another important point when we think about that is the opportunity it creates in emerging markets, where audio has been a unique segment compared to other consumer electronics market in terms of its concentration around developed markets, especially North America and parts of Western Europe. But now we see new use cases, and it's creating, we're seeing it already, enormous growth in markets where audio hasn't been particularly strong. China, Southeast Asia, and other parts of emerging regions around the world, where you see penetration of audio equipment 1/10 or 20th that you do in developed markets. So audio should benefit from that, but it's other use cases that are driving adoption in those regions. Another important trend that I think it's important to highlight is that home, car, mobile, office still remain fairly distinct environments or domains for audio. It's a disjointed experience for consumers moving between those. It's still different brands, but that presents a huge opportunity for consumers and industry in bringing those domains together as a somewhat unified experience. Another important trend is the importance of content, and we've heard a lot about that in Alex's presentation as well, and software and apps and ecosystems. Again, it comes to the computerization of audio equipment generally, but sophisticated content curation, content bundling, and far more than just music, video games, another presentation you saw earlier today. And finally, last but not least, it is the quality and immersive audio experiences is becoming a priority for consumers. I mean, audio quality has always been significant for consumers, but now through consumer research, through the fact that consumers have been buying price-driven audio equipment, smart speakers, smart speaker pucks in huge volumes in the last few years, we see now a real desire for that second purchase to be focused around audio quality. And immersive quality is a part of that, but really immersive, rich audio experiences. Another important trend that we've seen over the last few years is the phenomenal growth and presence of the tech giants in the audio space, defined by the brands you see on the right there. But they really have been instrumental in driving audio in recent years. You know, they aren't just enjoying the growth and taking that volume and that value. They've been instrumental in driving it. You know, at the start of the period, you're looking at their voice introduced by Amazon with the Echo, drove huge adoption, starting to saturate in some countries, but still growing very, very strongly in emerging markets. And then more recently, it's the growth of true wireless, which really Apple has played a big part in driving that. Another important factor, which I referred to in the previous slide, is the growth of China. China is adopting audio technology at a rapid rate, and that is another factor that we see. And that growth is really all coming from the tech giants within China. One other important factor that's driving that is prices, and prices in certain parts of the audio market are coming down very, very aggressively, and they're almost at rock bottom. And you know, what you see in much of the audio market, especially the voice part of the market, is that audio is treated as a loss leader to ultimately drive volume and drive these products into people's hands and people's homes, but ultimately prices falling very aggressively. You know, among those players, really, it's only Apple that's making very healthy margins. And we hear stories in China of the OEMs buying products back from retail because they can still make a margin by selling it back to the brands that they're making from. So price is incredibly low. But ultimately, this market isn't about, for many of these companies, making money. It is about reach. It's about reaching consumers. It's about developing ecosystem. And it's about volume to ultimately sell services to these people in the home via smart speakers, on the go via true wireless headsets, in cars and at work. And another dimension to that is it's almost a race at the moment for these companies. You know, as we realize that these audio platforms are platforms in their own right, and they could be standalone as well in the home via smart speakers, or even standalone hearables. Moving forward, there's almost a race to control this and get consumers comfortable with the voice platforms and these platforms generally. But these vendors go much deeper into the audio market than just selling first-party devices. Ultimately, it's a means to an end, selling the hardware. And it's a way for these companies to sell many different services and platforms, whether that be content streaming platforms. If we think about the tech giants, Apple, Amazon, and Google, they represent the second, third, and fourth largest streaming music provider. Tencent in China is the largest music streaming provider as well. So they're very significant in that sense. selling virtual assistant technology, which creates so much opportunity for these companies to sell additional services, whether it's Google selling search data, whether it's selling retail services for Amazon, or content from other companies. So there's a huge potential revenue stream that comes from getting this technology and these assistants in people's homes and in their hands. As well as that, you have the automotive platforms. Again, the Android Auto, CarPlay, same from Baidu, Amazon Echo Auto. These are now supported by every major car maker in the world, and if we think about mobile mirroring technology from these companies, it's in around 30% of cars that were sold last year. There's also the potential to sell cloud services, whether that be as a consumer solution or as a B2B solution for storing and distributing content. But there's many more tools that these companies are putting out there to generate revenues for them. I think it's a very important dynamic that we see is the strength and the importance of the Chinese tech giants. These companies, for reasons I've already highlighted, the use cases are now starting to resonate more in China, and that is driving music consumption as well. But these companies are incredibly aggressive on price, but they are also innovative. They aren't involved as many areas as the likes of Google, Amazon, and Apple in terms of content, most of them, but they are doing a lot in terms of hearables. Especially we see a lot of technology going in from 5G standalone hearables, many different types of technologies. So there is a lot of innovation going there, but price as well is driving a lot of these products into consumers' homes, and they are being used as well. A key question with the China giants is how much they'll be impacted by the US-China trade wars, and how much they can grow beyond their domestic market. It's worth pointing out, though, that the China domestic market is so significant, and penetration is so very low compared to other regions in the world. So just the opportunity just from China is significant, but emerging markets are huge. Just by attaching products to mobile phones, when you consider that North America and Western Europe are only around 15% of smartphone sales, there's a lot of regions there that will be buying Chinese branded hardware, and that's clearly a significant opportunity. And you just look at how successful they've been in other CE categories. Home appliances, TVs, and mobile phones, the China brands have 40 to 50% of volumes today across those different categories. So these vendors will benefit from that. They'll benefit from domestic market as well as in emerging markets as well. So the China giants carry a lot of opportunity as we look forward. Here we see the influence of smartphone brands on the choice of true wireless headphones. Excuse me. What it shows us is that of the true wireless intended purchasers, 54% are more likely to choose the same smartphone brand. It's much, much higher for iOS versus Android. So for Android, you can see there that the majority of people who are buying to buy a true wireless pair of earbuds are more likely to buy an audio brand. There's also a major skew when you look at the age groups. So it is younger consumers that are generally going to be more inclined to buy their true wireless from their smartphone brand versus an audio brand. But what we see is the smartphone brands are generally seen as benefiting from the fact consumers think they work better with their device, but audio brands are still seen as being having stronger audio quality, and that makes them desirable. Another factor that makes them desirable is trust, and we see that in the smart speaker space, that you have still what we see is consumers trust audio brands more than they do their the tech giant brands, and we see that here as well, where the next smart speaker purchase, consumers are more inclined to buy audio brand, particularly if that brand supports their preferred voice assistant. but the preference for audio brands is much higher in key markets like China as well, and also in Germany. But trust is a key point within the context of privacy, which is a key theme in these markets. What we also look at is more of the extremes of the audio market in terms of price points, but also pro audio, where generally we see greater loyalty for the brands in that space. Here we're looking at the many brands that form the luxury audio market, which is defined as audio equipment costing over $5,000 per unit. You have over 100 brands in this space, and generally we're expecting the tech brands to not really compete in this space, partly because the volumes are relatively small, but these markets are valuable in their own right, and there's a lot of brand loyalty generally within these markets. An appreciation of audio quality, quote unquote, is also higher in these regions. But yeah, you know, these markets are valuable in their own right. When you think about pro audio and also the luxury audio market, they're valued at over $10 billion and growing 5 to 10% annually pre-COVID. Many of these markets have suffered quite badly since COVID. But the platforms from the tech giants are still relevant in these markets. If we think about voice technology moving forward, and some of their connectivity solutions like AirPlay 2 are still relevant in many of these markets. And finally, and this relates to the last session, but another exciting part of the audio market is within the enterprise space. When we think about collaboration equipment, this is a market that includes soundbars, video bars, speakerphones, microphones, and office headsets and hearables, office-based hearables we call them. And this is a market that's been doing very well. Aspects of this have done better since COVID versus some other categories, but it's a good area. It's got a unique vendor landscape versus the wider consumer electronics market. And the tech giants are in this space, but not pushing so hard from a hardware perspective. You have Microsoft with their headphones and their buds. Apple AirPods and True Wireless are playing a part in this as well. And Google have their platform as well. So this is another interesting space that was addressed in the last topic, in the last session. And it's another area where the tech giants are relevant. But it's still an area that will thrive with the unique brands in this space.